Hello and welcome to another short drawing lesson. This week I'm going to talk briefly about drawing cars and things in perspective, which I've done a little bit before, but there's one aspect which I haven't really covered yet, which is called drawing through. But before we get to that, I'll recap what the other important stuff is, because without some knowledge of those, you will not get very far, and the fourth one is not going to help you. So the first thing you really need to know to be able to reproduce an item so it looks three-dimensional and solid is perspective. There's no getting around it. You've got to understand how perspective works. So I've done a series of films on that, so make sure you're up to speed with those. The next thing you really need to know, for cars in particular, is how to construct wheels, circles in 3D, because cars have lots of circles on them, like the wheels, headlights, steering wheels. If you position those incorrectly, then there'll be glaring mistakes. So there's a film on that too, just here somewhere. The third thing that I think is really useful to know how to do is to be able to draw simple 3D forms without doing all the construction drawings. So just to be able to draw a cube, a cylinder, a sphere, a wedge shape, simple stuff like that without any construction drawings, just to be able to sketch one off that feels real. It's just something to practice, and pretty much everything, cars included, but even things like people, can be reduced down to a collection of simple primitive shapes like cubes and cylinders. So it's definitely a good skill to have. Now the fourth thing, which is what I'm going to talk about today, is called drawing through, and it's covered in great detail in this lovely book by Scott Robertson. Pretty much all of the book is about it in one way or another. And now, don't let this scare you off. This book does get very technical, because he applies this technique in a very detailed manner to construct amazing things like this. But if I was going to condense this book into a couple of sentences, and in the way that I use it in my day-to-day drawing, I would say it's about trying to imagine your object as if it was transparent. So I might not imagine every single part of this thing in 3D, but I would definitely think about the wheels on the far side. Pretty much every car drawing I do, I always draw all four wheels, if it has four, even if I know I'm not going to be able to see them all, because it's the construction on which everything else sits. So knowing where those four wheels are is a really useful thing, and you can see them here. This technique can also be very useful when you come to complicated shapes like this flare shape here, wondering how that would look when you transfer it to the other side of your vehicle. Would you even be able to see it? What kind of curve would it become? So these kind of problems that you sometimes come across, this technique of doing a little bit of construction drawing and mirroring things across the center line can be really useful, and it will just guide you as to what shape the thing should be. So, as I say, it's a really useful technique to have. Don't be frightened off by how detailed this book goes. You'll see in this demonstration how I use it in a very slapdash kind of sketchy way, but I am aware of it just so I can call on it when I need it to help me out a little bit. So as a little project, we'll try and draw a Morgan three-wheeler body very quickly. It's a simplified version. So it's a good idea to start knowing how your thing looks from side, top and front in orthographic views. And you can see from the top it's just a sort of boat shape, I suppose, we're going to draw, with straight sides and then a curved arched top. So the first thing we'll do is this line here at the front. That's parallel to our axle, so it'll go off to one of the vanishing points. That's there. The next we'll do this centre line. It runs right down the middle of the car. Any symmetrical objects, it's a good idea to think about the centre line, because that will help you keep the object symmetrical. So we'll pop that in here. And now we've got the very beginnings of a very simple perspective grid. And on top of that, we can place our boat shape. So if the front is going to be here, and the tip of the tail might be down here, You can draw a curved shape in there. Turn the page around to get a nicer arc, a rounded tail, swooping side around the front. And there's our simple sort of boat shape from the top projected onto our perspective grid. Notice how I made this side slightly bigger than that side because things get bigger as they come towards you in perspective, so I've done that with that there. Now we can put these slab sides on. So we'll put some verticals in and we'll draw parallel lines to the base. So there's one running across the back. The front is just a rectangle. And then this front curving surface needs to follow the bottom. And we can do our centre line running up the front and across the top to the tip. So now we've got a bit of a wireframe of a simple kind of boat shape. And we can start building things on top of that. So the next thing we need is this arch-shaped top. And we'll extend our centre line upwards, work out where the top of the arch should be. I've noticed on the actual car that from the top the nose is a bit narrower. So I'll try and do that. I'll take a chunk off the front and I'll draw the arch shape in between there. So there's it's not a radiator, but it's that kind of part of the car. An arch. And we can take now this curving line that runs all the way across the top of the car. So it's a centre line and it's a curving. So it's coming from the centre, running across the top and dropping down into the tail. And this area here doesn't really feel very curving yet, so we can add a few lines to that where the driver sits, and that will start to help to sort of describe what form that has. So if we imagine just straight lines running across the car at each end of the cockpit, so halfway back, maybe about here, and we'll mirror this kind of curved shape there, that will immediately shows you the kind of the shape of this. And we'll do another one here. So now we've got an area for the cockpit and we can start to see this as a curved shape, a curved top rather than just empty space. It'd be nice to know where this point is on the far side of the car, because this arch needs to continue round to it. And I could guess it. It's somewhere along this line, somewhere around here. But it'd be better just to do a bit of a construction drawing and work out exactly where it should be. So if this imaginary line from this point to this point is parallel to this line, so which is this one and this one. So we can do an imaginary line that's going to the same vanishing points as these from there. And where it intersects the far line, this curving boat-shaped top, that's where it should, where our arch should stop. So I might have guessed it a bit further back there and got it wrong. So it's better just to do this little construction process just to work out exactly where it should be. And to make it feel more like a cockpit, we'll just round off the corners. And to hide all these construction lines a bit, we can start to firm up the key lines, the important ones. And by doing that, your construction lines just start to fade into the background slightly. And we'll just quickly pop the nose on in the same way. So we've got, we can extend our centre line at the front. We've got this kind of quarter sphere shape. So you can draw one of those on there. From the top, the quarter sphere goes around. And this point here on the other side is actually there, where we can't see it. Again, you might just guess it too far out there because you want to put it somewhere where you can see it, but much better to let the construction drawing tell you where it should be rather than guessing. And you'll end up with a drawing that feels a bit more believable, hopefully. So there we are, we've got the beginnings of a simple Morgan three-wheeler body. And hopefully just by seeing that process you can just see how useful that can be. So, as I say, I don't use it all the time for everything, but I do use it when things get a bit complicated, and I'm always aware of all the bits that I can't see because they often guide where stuff should be later. So do check out Scott's fantastic book. Otherwise, like and subscribe. Have a great week, and I'll see you for another sketch soon.